If you wouldn't have been out there involved, speaking out, writing books, putting up websites, doing radio interviews, calling into talk shows, telling people at church what's going on, making copies of videotapes, if you wouldn't have been doing that, believe me, they'd already be blowing stuff up. They'd be launching more anthrax attacks. They were, the big CFR guy who kind of runs the terror operation for the government, makes little terror announcements, the Hart-Rudman Commission, Gary Hart, he got up on TV in the middle of last year and he said there will be smallpox attacks in Denver, Dallas, and Cleveland, and you better give all your rights up. I mean, he said it. He said, he said, you just get ready for it. We're going to lock all the cities down. They had the head of FEMA, Mike Van Winkle, up in New Jersey, say in the newspaper, in the Gannett News Service, that, hey, under a red alert, you can't leave your house. You'll be considered an enemy combatant if you leave your home. The Army, they had one of their colonels in the Detroit Free Press. He said, we'll shoot grandmothers if they try to run quarantine. And you look at what Bush is doing. He's building 3 dozen giant, what he calls BioShield Level 4 bioweapons plants. Baltimore Sun said they're going to produce thousands of gallons of liquid death, of weaponized smallpox, weaponized Ebola. And they're just doing right out in front. The terrorists are about to strike us. The terrorists are about to strike us. And they're building all these giant plants to just, and in big cities and small towns. 3 dozen of them. I mean, they're 100 times more dangerous than a nuclear weapons production plant or nuclear reactor. And have you heard about this on the news? Very little. So you're television watching you. And then I've got the new Victory Act. What this is a duplication of Patriot Act 1 and 2. Because parts of Patriot Act 1 have been repealed in the House. It's now in the Senate. And so they're trying to duplicate it. Again, they shoot a torpedo at the country. We might, it might hit the ship in a spot where the bulkhead's reinforced and only floods a few compartments. Well, they're not going to stop. Torpedo 2, torpedo 3, torpedo 4, torpedo 5. That's what they're doing right now. I'm writing analysis of the Victory Act. It says in here, the Victory Act says that possession of any controlled substance or prohibited substance. That means a little old lady puts her medication in the wrong plastic container when she goes to church. And who doesn't do that? Who takes medication? You've all heard of little old ladies getting taken to jail. Cop pulls over. Let me search. Let's share out the knife. What are these pills? These aren't the designated bottle. Under that, it says 1 marijuana cigarette, anything, 20 to life. It says it. It says it in the Victory Act, word for word. And it says it's an act of terrorism. And before they announced this evil law, before Ashcroft went on his ridiculous Carnival Barker road show, before they did that, they had all the TV ads. Well, I occasionally smoke marijuana, and I don't see how it helps terrorists. And then the guy goes, the intellectual goes, let me list 100 reasons. And at the end, the guy's going, and then the ad fades to black, like, oh, I've been decimated. See, they tell you, marijuana is aiding Al-Qaeda. And then you see all these ads on TV, public service announcement, brought to you by Homeland Security, or brought to you by all their little minion groups, all the little 501c3 charities. And so they do that. That's what they're up to. This is their operation. So they're just firing, and people go, well, we've been beating back the first Patriot Act and educating a lot of folks, but they're bringing out more. There's nothing we can do. You're in a war, folks. They're firing more torpedoes. That should encourage you. These guys... arming enemies, arming terrorists. There are as many examples of this as there are fish in a good-sized lake. I mean, it's amazing. Here's one, Time Magazine, and they just admit this now. Nukes to North Korea from Nashville. And it says, yeah, these conservative groups that own these big weapons companies, they've been selling all the nuke stuff to Kim Jong-il in North Korea. Now we're going to have World War III to fix it. Well, that's all right. But we had to go in there and get Saddam, man. He had some aluminum tubing. My gosh, that guy, he was in bombed-out bunkers. He was a real threat. Of course, he also had about $4 trillion in oil, and a bunch of weapons sales, and got the troops in that region, invade Syria, Iran, everybody else. So there's that. And there's idealistic Philippine rebellion leaders claim moral victory. This was all over the BBC and the French news. And 300 commandos led by a colonel took over a building, released documents, and said the government with the U.S. has been doing all the bombings, shooting all the people. It's our own government shooting us. There are no terrorists here. The Muslims are doing nothing. These so-called terror groups are the Philippine government, quote, that wants to continue martial law. It's been in effect there for decades. I mean, it's simple. Let's say I owned the company that sold fire department equipment, and I wanted to make some money. I'd go out and set fire to something out here in Bastrop, and then I told you you should have bought my firefighting equipment. I mean, it's not hard to figure this out. Here's another one. U.S.-Pakistan made deal over capture of bin Laden. That's out of the mainstream India. And Musharraf's over there, the head of India, the head of Pakistan, next door to India. We're all trying to nuke each other. And they're saying, well, yeah, we could have got bin Laden, but we just didn't. That would have caused some problems. And they flew 8,000. It's not 6,000 now. 8,000 Taliban and Al-Qaeda out to safety in the middle of the phony war. All opposition fell apart. They flew them out to safety, admit the U.S. government did it, and Fox News said, well, it's true, but it was an accident. You're going to talk bad about our C-130 pilots? They didn't mean it. And there's the Pentagon there, admittedly, with large groups of euros and dollars and gold. Some news articles paying them. Good job, men, good job. You know, they go in, act cool, shoot some stuff up. They were put in by the globalists. Then they have this big phony war. They collapse and fall back, and the globalists take over that country in a month that the Russians couldn't do in 8-9 years. It's all staged, folks. And they got more wars. They say a 100-year war. They say that it's never going to end. And the war is now against people that smoke marijuana. Not against Ritalin or Prozac users, though. The war is now against people that don't turn over their property to the government. There's this stuff in the Victory Act about protesting or standing up for your land when they're taking it. And you're a terrorist. I mean, all this legislation turns us into serfs, slaves. You tell somebody this bill, they go, that's ridiculous. Government would never do anything wrong or want to control us. Oh, no, just all throughout human history, 6,000+ years of civilization, that's all they ever tried to do. But now they're all nice and sweet. By the way, guys in black ski masks were always bad guys. People in black ski masks, oh, that's the terrorist, that's the bank robber. About 5 years ago, Hollywood, the news, hey, all cops look like this, it's cool, they're the good guys. Every department, well, I got to have my own combat boots and my own ski mask, my own black helmet, and somebody's door to kick down. Man, that's cool. But the good news is that John Ashcroft has been trying to go around the country and have these staged town hall meetings where they only allow police and government employees in. And in Detroit, he got up this week and began giving a speech, and at the end of it, a man stood up and said, Mr. Ashcroft, I would like to know which of your terrorists are going to be used for a new 911. You and Vice President Dick Cheney, said the heckler who got into the room in a downtown Detroit convention center by posing as a TV reporter. These people shouldn't be able to go anywhere in public where they're out peddling their lies without being confronted by you, we the people. And I've covered these protests. I've had guests on in the middle of them in Detroit, in Salt Lake City, in Boise. And you'll have 500 people, 1,000 people, 200 people, black people, white people, Hispanics, old, young, conservatives, liberals, and they're all there, they're waking up. And if you just tell the truth about tyranny and explain how things really work and how corrupt and dangerous this out-of-control, privatized government is, how they created big government, got us all addicted, privatized it, and are handing it over to the corporations with new governmental power, and the little socialists I know are going out and buying guns. It's beautiful. If you're not a hypocrite, you can deprogram and go, wait a minute, did a Native American have a right to have a gun to defend themselves against the army? Well, of course. Well, you like Che Guevara so much. I don't agree with him. He was an establishment guy, but, I see you wearing a T-shirt with him with an AK-47. Why is that okay? See, you've just got an opinion that isn't backed up with any fact. And it's a recipe for disaster to disarm a population. You disarm a population. Let's say we had a little angel running the government right now.